The latest patch surprised us with a lot of buffs and actually changed the meta quite a bit, not really what I was expecting. So in this video we'll be going over what has changed and what are the best decks right now to climb to a legend. And let's start with Whizbang, because this card got a massive buff. Now it really depends on what deck you're getting with Whizbang, how good it is. And overall it's not really the best card to climb with or the best decks to climb with. Though, yeah, I think when I was looking at the deck win rates, the deck with the highest win rate actually was a Whizbang deck, but then there's also like 40% win rate decks and that really bring it down. So this is actually, I'd say, viable, not great, but you could climb with it if you do well with the decks. And yeah, it's also just really fun to play with all the different Whizbang decks, so that's what I wanted to mention. Now let's go to the best deck, and it is once again Demon Hunt. And yeah, there's a lot of different builds of Demon Hunter, especially with this one. Is more faster cycle decks. There's builds with running the Ceaseless instead of the Inquisitor. So this deck is running the Inquisitor because now with the new card, Warmaster Blackhorn, there's actually a bunch of decks running it, and that means that, you know, your portal doesn't have to charge anymore, so then you instead can play with Illidar Inquisitor to have the burst and have it enable the lease. And on top of that, this deck has just a ton of damage, right? We got the infinite weapon, we've got the chargers here with Cliffside, we've got the charger with patches, infestation. It's like half the deck just deals damage, and then the Elise as well, which can give you plus attack. And it's probably the best one in this deck, get plus attack, because then your dangerous Cliffside is extremely dangerous. So try and go for that if you can. Then the second deck we have here is the Unholy Blood Death Knight. Now it looks pretty similar to a Blood Unholy, but that looks slightly worse, but still very viable to climb with. But I wanted to highlight this build. So it's running a double Unholy Blood, which means you can run the Assimilating Blight to get a lot of corpses with that one. That's really strong with it. And that's also why we're running the Felric. Just get a lot of corpses early, and that means you can cheat out consistently with Maladar, a late game card, get those Stitch Giants down, get the Pterodactyls down, and just be able to swing every turn with Foam Render. Just remember, this is not a control deck. You don't have any of the control tools like Ceaseless or Corpse Explosion, so you really don't want to go too long in the late game, although there is quite a bit of late game though with, you know, Shaladosil, the Ziliax, Firewreck, so it's not the worst to go there, but you don't want to keep extending the game over and over. And the first warrior deck we have here is the Dragon Warrior, and it's still really strong. And again, this is a deck I would recommend crafting if you don't have a lot of dust, or just don't want to waste a lot of dust before the next expansion, because this deck is just gonna stay pretty much as it is in standard. There's only two cards rotating here, the Gift Wrap, well, definitely Loss and the Zeph, but you can play like the 3-drop Dragon instead of it. That buffs your hand and weapons by +2. I think this deck is pretty straightforward, right? Just try and play the biggest minion on curve, especially if you get Snowball early with a Stonecarver. It's huge, and you can just pump out a lot of damage with the Stadium Announcer, the Grom. Yeah, we're running Gromesh because we have the location, so that's a really nice combo. The Wind Peak Worm, just a lot of ways to deal damage from hand, and then top of that, just get a really nice board with those big dragons, such as the new Slither Drake. Then we have the Hagatha Shaman, and you're probably familiar with this deck. You buff your minions early with Birdwatching, Fly Out the Firehawk, or get Hagatha early, then play those minions, then buff those minions again with your Wish Upon a Star, then play more buff minions, and then win the game. And here we have the second warrior deck, and this deck got a lot better with the latest patch, with the new card, with Warmaster Blackhorn, because that 7 slot wasn't that great before in warrior, kind of struggling to find a good card for it, but the Warmaster Blackhorn is really nice in that spot because you can shut down a bunch of ODK decks or get rid of the Broxigar from Demon Hunter, and then just have a way easier time with surviving until that late game, although usually you already win by just playing this against certain combo decks. And yeah, that just really helped this deck a lot. Just anvil a slot and be able to beat those combo decks that were strong before. Other than that though, yeah, it's kind of the same as the last few weeks this deck has been. We now have the Murozond compared to like a few months ago when there was no Murozond. Just, yeah, it's really just an OTK deck now in the late game. Don't try and outvalue the opponent, because there's just no reason to win. You can just play a Time Warp and Murozond to win the game. And here we have the Aura Paladin, and this one is just as good as before. Just get a nice curve, right? You can ramp early with the Treasure Guild, which gets you the acceleration aura. With that, you can maybe play like a turn 3 Elise, turn 4 location, or you just try and cheat out the Gelwin as soon as possible. Pretty important. This deck is all about that Gelwin and getting it out as quickly as you can. And another way to do that is the Ursine Mole with the Dorian, or just Ursa Maul would draw it anyway, but especially with Dorian, you can get it out as early as like turn 5. And yeah, that usually wins the game, so just try and focus on getting that Gelwin down as soon as possible. Then we have another Demon Hunter deck, and this one is a bit different than the Blob deck. This is just focused on Cliff Dive and Cliff Dive only. It doesn't really do a whole lot else. It's got the Fate Trickster to get the Cliff Dive, and then Cliff Dive gets the Inquisitor and the Briar Spawn. And with all the other damage, just like the other Demon Hunter decks with the Cliffside, the weapon, even Sigil of Cinder here, Infestation. Yeah, you push a lot of damage, and then with one Cliffside, maybe two, usually win the game. So yeah, pretty simple game plan for this deck. And here we have the Copy Druid, and yeah, this is still a good deck to climb. It's got the copy cards, of course, that's what the deck is named after. You got the Jinajari, and then Elise most of the time also gets copy, and then you can either copy the Stargrazer. Don't underestimate this card. That's a lot of health and attack you gain with this if you copy it like twice or even 3 times. And then we also have the Alonius. That's the usual win con with the spell damage. Just keep in mind though, with people not playing Warmaster Blackhorn, they might just burn all your spell damage cards with Living Roots, Ebb and Flow, press the advantage. So then you only have swipe left if you haven't used it earlier. So keep that in mind, that it isn't the only win con you have left if you face a deck that might be running Warmaster Blackhorn. And here we have Protoss Priest as usual. Yeah, you play Protoss cards, you resurrect it, you play more Protoss cards, you play even more Protoss cards, and then you even play more Protoss cards. And here we have basically a completely new deck because of the buffs, because that abduction rate got a lot better from 2 to 1 mana. So now this is very playable in this deck. We're also running the Foreboding Flame, so it makes this card, these demons of abduction rate, even cheaper, so -3 or even -4 mana. And then, yeah, even the bad demons are very playable with that kind of discount. And then you can play this card multiple times. You can even get a total 4 copies with the Sketch Artist later in the game. And then we got the Archimald that also got buffed, of course, to yeah, just resummon those demons that you got earlier. Just have a card for that final push in case they did clear all your early game. Because this deck, yeah, you can see all the 1-drops here. A lot of early game, Zilliax that buffs them. And yeah, this is just a very aggressive deck. And I would definitely recommend the aggressive version, not the slower version like some other YouTuber recommended. That is definitely way worse than this build. And then the Discover Hunter, it's down a bit more than I think it used to be. It used to be a bit higher, but it's still good. Though, yeah, again, Warmaster Blackhorn, it gets a bit worse now against those decks because you can no longer stock up on those amulets and wait for Neri because it can just delete those amulets and pretty much all the damage in this deck. But still a good deck to climb with, especially if you know a bit how to play it. It's a bit more difficult maybe than some other decks because you can sometimes have some crazy turns. But yeah, still a good deck to climb with. Just a very aggressive build this one, not playing the Elise build because I think that's a little bit too slow in this meta. So I think this is the build to play. And then we have the Libram Paladin, another deck that got massively buffed with the last patch. Now, there are some familiar cards in this. It also has an aura package because the auras are just very good, but it doesn't have like the weapon or Dorian to cheat it out. So you're less likely to get it, but the surrounding package for Librams is a lot stronger. It's not just Gelbin or Bust like with the Aura Paladin, because now we have the newly buffed URL, the buffed Interstellar Wayfarer. So yeah, those Librams, like the buff card here, it's way easier to get this down to 0, and it's kind of a big deal getting this down to 0, as well as getting the Liberal Faith down to preferably 0, but even for, you know, 1, 2, 3 mana, it's still a pretty good card. So a bit of a different spin on the Aura Paladin if you want to try out the Librams before they rotate. Anyway, I have the Imbue Rogue from the latest mini set, a very fun deck to play. You just get so many crazy cards, random cards, and then you can combine them for some crazy turns. It just makes this deck really fun. I do want to note that you do want to watch out for deck lists, because I saw a deck list that actually got played like 700 games that didn't have a 5-drop. And yeah, I would not recommend not having a 5-drop in this deck, because Eudora got buffed, but that means you need a 5-drop for the Elise. Otherwise, yeah, your Elise is just there as a 4 mana 3/5. So just make sure if you build a deck like this that Elise is active. Now the 5-drop we have in this deck is the Steam Cleaner. I'm not exactly convinced about this card, but this was the list I saw. And yeah, you can just kind of change whatever you want. I think for this slot, this is better, I guess, against like the Broxigar or a Quest Warrior. But you can maybe run like a Ceaseless or some other 5-drop. So it's kind of up to you what you want to run. It's just, yeah, you just need a card for that Elise, because Elise is just kind of needed to make this deck work, especially if you steal that card multiple times with like Deja Vu and Nightmare Fuel. And the last deck we have is another buff deck, and this one that's surprisingly good stats. Though not the biggest sample size, but I think it was worth putting in here because we didn't have another mage deck. And yeah, just a kind of a new deck that we haven't seen before. So I wanted to highlight this one. And what it wants to do, I mean, early on, you can be kind of aggressive. We got cards like the Slither Spear, the Troubled Mechanic, the Marooned Archmage, just get some tempo early. And then we also have the Ryla to get potentially full board that your opponent really struggles dealing with, so you can push damage with that. And if that gets cleared, obviously you want to go for the Arkwing Pilot, so you play the Ingenious Artificer, the Arkwing Pilot, and then you spam some spells and have a full board of that, potentially with, you know, some Divine Shields on them, and then they deal, 21 damage to the opponent if there's no board. And then you can do that multiple times, and then the opponent also has to clear it. So that's just another surprising new deck this patch actually gave us. And these are the decks I would recommend right now to climb to Legend. Now, if you missed the announcement of Cataclysm, I got a video for that, where I go over everything you need to know for Cataclysm and what's going to be happening in the next few months. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time.